Hello, people. This week, I decided to go with 1Q84. Oh, God, they hit the mic. 1Q84 by, who is this guy? Haruki Murakami. It used to have a really cool, what are those? Book covers, one of them from the store, and it had, I think it changed these to different colors or something to this effect, right? It was like transparent. It was very cool. I just can't be bothered to keep up with them. I'm being honest. Get them in and out too much. Next thing you know, it disintegrates or it tears. I'm like, I don't have time for that. Your boy ain't got time for it. Okay, so why did I pick this book? Back in the day, I was listening to a podcast called The Sword and Laser. It's a good podcast. I think it's still on. And they picked this book up. They do sci-fi and fantasy. So it's one of those two. It's all I knew about it. I also knew it was a Japanese author. And I'm interested, right, in foreign authors, different viewpoints, etc. It's a big unit, right? Bought this full price, almost sight unseen, hardback. Look at all those words. Look at them. Now, what's the rating? Let's just get that out of the way. Should you bother with this book? The rating on this one is 2 out of 5. It's not good. It's not a good story. It's not... Doesn't move the needle at all. It didn't... In the time since I've read it, and re-going over it again for this video, nothing stands out really about it. Other than, oddly enough, the writing. Right? It's very good writing, but nothing happens. So if you want a look at what good writing but bad storytelling looks like, this is a prime example. Oh God, the mic moved again. This is going horribly. I didn't think it was possible, honestly. I didn't think you could be a good writer and a bad storyteller. I didn't think they were separable, so to speak. But they certainly are. Okay. So what's going on? What happens? What is this? This isn't science fiction. It's a fantasy-ish. Fantastical things happen. Barely. We start with a Japanese lady. Aomame. She's in a taxi. She's going on one of those high roads, overpasses. Stuck in traffic. She has to get somewhere. She's busy. Our author creates an atmosphere very well. You see all the places. You understand what's happening. Just nothing happens in it. And maybe that's the problem. He builds, and then there's it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a lot of smoke, no fire. She's in this taxi. She starts talking to the cab driver. What does she say? There's something about the driver's way of speaking that bothered her, as though he were leaving something important unsaid. He talks in this kind of way the stories you read where Zeus randomly shows up and the characters understand that I think that was Zeus, but no one says anything. It's that kind of a feel, some kind of something mystical about him. Makes a big point about it. In any case, he tells her about an access ladder for emergencies or a maintenance that she could go down and walk the rest of the way. This is what she does. Apparently, this is what got her out of one reality into another. but it takes a long time. Well, it's a big fat book with nothing happening, so everything takes a long time to do anything. Our chapters are named sort of a little, the world goes on. You know, cats eat fish, but sometimes they swim. These kind of weird kind of titles to them. But the main crux is character names. Aomame, then our other character, Tengo, and detective later on, etc. Right? This is how our story goes. We follow these people. Our Tengo is very large, like judo level guy who's just working as a teacher now. And then it gets weird. Okay, so this book's not for kids to... There's too much sexual content to be for kids. And not like a Harlequin, which they make a big point of saying, you know, there's... I think at some point they're like, we were in Congress, not... We didn't have sex. And I'm like, it all just sounds like weird... goofy excuse making. You did the dirty, let's just say. They were doing it. But again, it's not anything that builds in any kind of way. We have a lot of... It feels like we'll just use these things for the shock of it, but then maybe for the shock of their disattachment, right? There are a lot of very disattached characters for whatever reason. Our Tengo's, I'm like, we just introduced the character. And the intro is him having this random memory where as an infant, his mom is cheating on his dad. In a more graphic way than you would like. Not overboard. None of it's overboard. But it right? So if the rest of the book is sort of tepid water, it don't take much to feel out of joint with the rest of it. And in that sense, it feels overboard. But it's a spike that doesn't seem to end anywhere. It doesn't lead to anything. He has this thing where it takes a hold of him and he just says he felt dizzy. But it's this memory just taking over his body. This happens like a few times and then it doesn't happen again. And by not again, I mean like 70% of the book. It's just a non-entity. So it's making these what feels like wannabe heavy points without enough of the substance to carry the point across. I think this is the main problem with this book. He's going to talk to a Komatsu. It's his publisher. Now, what I will say about the publisher, there's a publisher. I'll say this about all the characters when I talk about them. Again, the writing's good, so they are real to me. You get a good sense of them very quickly. I don't know if it's a Japanese thing. There's a lot of verbal clarifications. So the conversation may feel repetitive. I'm not sure if that's... Because I feel like I've seen that in animes as well. A few animes where we'll say something and then the other character is like, so what you mean is... And he'll like repeat what he just said. And it seems kind of awkward because I'm like, he just said it. So I don't know if that's a Japanese thing. I haven't read enough Japanese authors to know. But apart from the dialogue, the Komatsu character is kind of cool. He seems like a cool... He smokes. I felt like he dressed fashionably. He makes moves in the publishing world. He seems like a cool cat. Like a cat that would live in a city. Like a city cat. So he's cool, but all the characters come alive for you. And it's weird that you're like, aren't you affected? I'm like, I'm not affected because nothing happened. Nothing happens in this book. So if you could get these characters, like if you read these books and then use those characters to write a better story, you'd be very attached. He needs like a co-writer, a tandem, somebody, a story guy. I don't know. I guess he doesn't. He's selling tons of these. The publisher, or Komatsu, wants our boy Tengu, who, on top of being good at math and a judo level champion, is also an extremely good writer, apparently. I don't know. To rewrite a Fuka Aries book called Air Cristasis. She's this odd girl who wrote this book that looks like it may win an award and end up super popular. And of course, make a publisher, Jack Tunzo Keish. And then, of course, if it all gets found out, it's 1984. And there would be, then all their ships would all be sunk, so to speak. And it's just them two talking at a table. But it feels very energetic. Like I'm in a city. There's the movement. It's alive. And we're doing this sort of illegal thing, right? That you think happens. This must happen all the time in a city. These back shady deals, making moves. I don't know. It had great atmosphere. This particular scene. We cut back to our Aomame. I think, I'm trying to remember. At some point she goes in to a hotel. She's at a hotel. She pretends to be a staff member to check on this guy's AC. Nothing's wrong with his AC. Then she pretends like she saw something on his neck. He turns around like, well, what is it? How about I get paint on my neck? And she stabs him with a kind of a thin ice pick. Right in the neck. Full on assassination. Oh, God. Full on assassination. And she holds him up for 5 minutes, dead guy. Just to leave no evidence, right? Clean kill. And again, I'm like, when I'm first reading, or this far in, I'm like, oh crap. I got some mystical crap happening. I got an assassin. This came out of the blue. I'm very excited. It's interesting. Again, this doesn't go many places. After this, she has, and it feels forced. I feel like I feel like some stories do this where, I don't know, like the author thinks if a woman acts flippantly about sex, it's more masculine or something to this effect. But she has essentially a one-night stand. It's presented very unemotionally. She's very forward about it. For a second, I was thinking she was going to kill the guy. We don't get into too much of the descriptors other than the, brash, upfront conversation about making it happen, right? The deal. Talking about the deal, so to speak. It's pointedly done by the author, so you can't avoid it. And it happens more in the book. It's very uninteresting because, again, it doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't tell me anything about this character. It tells me more that the author seems forced in this. Not like someone's making them do it, but like if you don't know how to get across certain attributes, I could see you forcing that subject to crowbar in the attribute, if that makes sense. That's sort of what we get here. That's what it feels like. And then, next chapter, our Tengu is meeting with the writer, the Fuki Eri. She comes off like an automaton, full on. 17. And then again, we get our Tengu guy at 30 something's attracted to her. Now I know in some cultures or some areas, 17, we're not going to get into the age of consent number and all that. The character himself understands the age gap here. But then it's, what do we get? This is like, what is the red flag to me? It's almost like a road sign to me. Whenever they use the verbiage, not the pangs of love or sexual desire. They do this a lot where the author's trying to make a point to say that this isn't sexual. And I'm like, it just sounds creepy to me. Excuse making. You know, like when you hear like this is the Branch Davidians or some mess, these cults. And they try and throw him like, you can tell he's just a perv. Right? He's just a perv. I don't think that's the energy the author's trying to elicit. But it's the same as like a painting, right? So if you with skill paint some heavy religious theme, right? Now your skill and your subject matter can match, and then it can carry a heavy message. Same here. The subject matter will be treated a certain way when it's read. Sexual subject matter will be treated a certain way. Now you have to match that. His writing matches. He could carry that. But the story can't. If that makes sense. So now things are disproportioned. And he can never right the ship. There's never enough that happens. There's never driving enough motivations. We get this idea where, and in drips, mind you, at one point our girl here says, the little people actually exist. Of course, you wonder what the little people are. Later, our Aomame sees 2 moons, and that's how she knows she's not in a normal world. But there's not enough. It's the same. One Q84 is the same as 1984, other than a second moon. I don't see weird physics. But more than seeing it, there's not an effect that the world is having on our characters that play into any of the subject matter he's trying to present, right? We get no give and take. It's just plopping things on the table, so to speak. And it doesn't end up going anywhere. It just really doesn't. And, if I strained, right? Like if I looked real hard and laid things out, I'm sure I could force points, find these interesting ways that these things connect. But honestly, that'd be me working. And I don't know that anywhere in this story it was designed for me to work, if that makes sense. There's some, I'm going to make a philosophy style story. The author wants you to sit and just think about, just crunch your, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Remunerate? That's not it. That's not the word. I can't think of the word. You can tell in some stories the author wants you to grab big chunks and just chew on them in your off time when you're not even reading. So it's like his intent, the artist's intent is for you to think. I can't see in any of the bits that aren't story, that aren't dialogue. I don't see anywhere in here that's giving me the signal. Think about this. Work on this. Again, this book does not stick with you in any way, other than it's a big unit. If you carry this around, right? This right here, I think, is the last book I bought. This one right here convinced me. Maybe a Kindle's a good idea. Maybe this. Maybe this is much better. That's what came out of this book. Tengu has a relationship with Apparently, a lot of women, one married included. And again, you would think, is this he some kind of. No, he doesn't come across as a kind of a horn dog or anything like this. That would be interesting. He's almost like an automaton, too. They're all very clinical, lifeless internally, right? Like they got no juice, bro. They got no juice. We meet in one chapter the Dowager, some old lady in a big, nice house with a parakeet. She has more personality. She's the one who hires our Aomame. What she does is she kills, pervs, douchebag guys. So if the guy beats on his lady too much, Dowager might get you off. If you a perv or a pedo, she'll put you down. And she finds people who help her do this. And Aomame is one of these. She'll kill you. And you're like, that sounds interesting. And I'm like, I know. But somehow it's not by the time he's done. I'm going to grab everything interesting and coat it in this wonderful uninterestingness. That's what I'm going to do. I'm Murakami. We know this we get internal monologues and memories. She met Tengu when she was like 10 and he was like 12. Kids, they fell in love, but never met again. So you automatically know, well, they'll meet again later. And it'll all end well. I already knew that then. It's sort of what happens. She's given a heckler and coke or coach. I don't know how to say this word. Heckler and coach HK4. And I want to say it's Tchaikovsky. To get some writer who's like, don't show a gun and not use it, right? Well, that's exactly what this does. She doesn't shoot nobody. This gun is never needed. This gun is useless. And it's a named gun. And heckler and coach guns look cool because that's what John Wick uses. But there ain't no John Wick action. I would have liked that. She's given her last assignment. This one will set her free. She'll get plastic surgery, change her face, get a good check, and be moved around. She needs to kill who they call the leader. He runs a religious cult, full-on pedo. Pedo stuff in a cult. Yeah. But even that, you would think, when we get down to it, he does use like his writing powers to not focus on that. It ends up weird. It's, again, like I said, it's too much. Like, you can't. So you made a great painting or some religious thing here, but then like a dog pooping there. Your eye's gonna look at the dog poop. It's too much, too goofy, it's too out of the way. It's too heavy a subject matter to not focus on it. So then I'm like, why am I this focused? And there's no point to it. It seems to be a bit sensational. I don't know. He does more to try and explain to us what 1Q84 is, what the crap is supposed to be happening. And this may be the biggest fault of the book, right? This could have turned it. We're somehow in a new now. He doesn't say they're not parallel. It's a new now. And he's saying you can't go back. We don't know who, obviously the name, who put me here, who moves me around, what happens to the old one. What are the rules of the new one? He says the rules are cause and effect don't have as much bearing. Again, though, I don't see it. I don't see any of this Q in the 1Q84-ness happening around me. This subject gets dropped essentially after this conversation. The leader is this huge muscle bro. She massages him, has this conversation. He seems to know what she's thinking. We have the sense that he can cause storms to happen. He might have telekinetic powers. He's also a pedophile, but he tries to explain it like I'm not a pedophile. So, what is it? In the book, it's a reasonable enough explanation that she then doesn't want to kill him, but also doesn't want to kill him because he's going to die horribly anyway because he died. And I'm like, I don't know what the crap's happening, or more importantly, why it's happening. He doesn't have any more answers than anyone else. A lot of times he says, I think at some point he's like, the explanation is something that loses the meaning if it's put into words. And I'm like, well, I'm reading words, bro. If you got some pictorial way to explain it, you know what? Never mind. You're a pedo. I don't want a pictorial way of anything like that. Right? But if you're an author and you're going to go in on a subject, you're the one who needs to take the bite of that apple, right? Bite it, chew it, give the reader something. That's your job. If it's sci-fi, you got to sort of project forward, see a future. If it's fantasy, go to that world, find the effects, show me, right? It's a show me state. He doesn't show you anything. He wants to leave it very, was it ephemeral? He doesn't want to, or he can't, or he doesn't know, or he thinks it's more mysterious, but it isn't. I mean, there's just no way around it. He wants to say something about receiver, perceiver, and this relates male, female. I think it would have been cleaner if the male, female were of, adult age. Then I wouldn't have this distraction, this pedo distraction. But it feels like he wants the distraction to add complexity, right? Like if you can't focus on one, it feels more complex and trying to grasp his concepts. That's what it comes across as. Just unnecessary complication to make up for lack of description. That's the sense that I get. It's not that good. We then come to, there's like 3 books in it. Again, there's no real rhyme or reason. I don't get a strong sense of difference from book 1 to book 2. We add a Ushikawa. This is an ugly super detective. Self-described as ugly. Almost like a hunchbacker. I don't know why. Again, there's no reason. Aomame's attractive but not a supermodel. Tengu is a full-on Adonis, but a nerd. And Ushikawa is ugly, but a super detective. I see no cross-pollinating in their personalities, in their professions, in their actions. This just seems, I don't know. I don't see a point. He is a super detective. He starts tracking the whole situation. He ends up dead horribly. Poor him. I say poor him because, again, in the time, which is a long time, in the time you spend with this person, you get a sense of him. Married, with kids. Things went weird professionally. He's doing this as a side gig, etc. Right? If we just sort of stuck to one, I'd almost have been more interested. Just in him as a detective. Just as her as an assassin. Maybe just his tango with his weird, his weird sex life. Individually, I feel like they'd be more interesting. I think they'd all be more interesting without this 1Q84 element. I'm waiting for this more to happen. Doesn't. But he ends up dead by a Tamaru. He's a professional killer who the Dowager hires to keep things where it needs to be. So if someone's tracking one of her assassins, this one, cleans it up. He's a great assassin too. Like I said, this is great writing. This guy is professional, introspective, in control, smooth, talks, vicious. When the detective, he's not a detective, he's an investigator, I should have said. When the investigator, again, like an officer of the law can say, I'm a policeman, and that opens some doors. I don't know how you're supposed to find out all this information when you are not a cop. When you're just like, hey, I'm just a guy. You want to tell me stuff? I'm like, I don't know how you do that. The investigator part is pretty cool. And he's good at it. Effort. He has good intuition. But this Tamaru comes and what does he say? You need to answer me truthfully, or you'll go to the bottom of the ocean. Like, what do you mean? Puts a bag over his head and, with a rubber band, half suffocates the guy. Takes the bag off. I'm like, that was unpleasant, wasn't it? You'll tell me the truth. I'll know if you're lying. You'll go back to the ocean. You might not make it. It's stone cold. But also, when he eventually goes to kill him, because all it was trying to find out all the information so that I need to make sure there's no more loose ends. So if you told someone else, I'll need to know and I'll handle them too. But he didn't tell anyone else. So this is where the buck stops. But at the end, he goes, I'm sorry about this. I didn't want to. He's not a psychopath. Doesn't get, doesn't get off on it in any kind of way. Just a cool customer. Smooth. But he kills the guy. Leaves no evidence. Rough way to go. Of course, our two are Aomame and Tengu. Assuming that's what they look like. She ends up some weird element with the little people, some power. I think at some point they're like, nothing is real without love. And I'm like, this is some nothing matters but love kind of love story. It's a dumb one where you physically show all this negativity in a world without love. If that's the kind of, if that was your big message, it's stupid. I'm not gonna lie. Again, you can't wrap it in this much and not be stupid. She ends up, okay, she's plenty of debaucherous nights, let's say. And then randomly ends up pregnant, but they want to say it wasn't the debauchery, that it's some kind of weird confluence of the universe or some crap. And her and him go hand in hand back into 1984, and I guess live happily ever after. There was some weird convoluted, here's how hard it is to be in your 20s and 30s before you find true love. If it's supposed to be that, it's really dumb. That's all I'll say. And that's it. 90% of this book, 90% of this bad boy is descriptors of its backstory. It's inner issues with each character. It's great character, like, say, study, but there's horribly no story in it. No great points. If you had points, muddled by subject matter, unpleasant subject matter, and good or bad, unpleasant, interesting, none of it sticks to your ribs. You'll forget this if you took the time and read this whole unit. You know what you would remember? You'd remember how heavy the book is. You'd remember I read a big long book one time. That sticks with you more than anything in the book. It's not good. I would avoid it if I were any one of y'all. And again, that's saying all that. Murakami is a great writer. I think I have another one of his books I want to read. Hopefully it's not as debauched as this one is. Not for kids. Not for people who don't like that subject matter. Probably, if you're into Harlequins, it's still not for you. Because I don't think it goes deep enough in. I don't think it's raunchy enough for people who like sort of raunchy Harlequins. To each his own, I'm not judging. And it ends up being, what is it? Net gain of 0. It didn't get you anywhere. You just spent a lot of time reading pages. Just words. Wordplay. And that's 1Q84. I don't know what to tell you. Other than it's ad time. Are my books better than 1Q84? Easily. Hold on, I'll pick up a book. I put this bad boy in this shelf up here. Easily my books are better. I'm a better storyteller. That's not boasting, it's just the truth. But let me be honest. You're probably a better storyteller than Murakami. At least as far as 1Q84 goes. Wasn't good. You won't miss it if you don't read it. Okay, people. I will see you lovely lot next week.